Anita Shur. So now today we will be doing the part 2 of this chapter, anatomy in flowering plants. In part 1 we have done till the tissue systems. So in part 2 we will be starting from the comparison between different parts of the plant in dicotyledonous and monocotyledonous plant types. Okay, so starting with the roots. Here you can see a comparative table between the dicot root and monocot root. So here, as you can see, that dicot roots are having these following parts: epidermis with root hair, then comes the cortex below epidermis. After the cortex or cortical layer, we have the endodermis, then pericycle, then we have our vascular bundle. So here we can see that the epidermis is the outermost layer which contains root hair. See, the epidermis is the outermost layer having the root hairs. Then we have several layers of cortex present that ends with the innermost layer endodermis, which contains waxy material called Severian forming Casparian strips. So here we can see the cortical layer ending in endodermis, and this layer may have Casparian strips within them. Next is the pericycle, which give rise to the lateral roots and vascular cambium. So we know that lateral roots are the roots which starts from the main taproot system. So from this pericycle layer the lateral root starts. Okay, next, the pith is very small or inconspicuous. As you can see in the vascular bundle, the pith is very small, or it may be absent also in few cases. Now the vascular bundles are 2 to 6 in number only. So the vascular bundles are very small. 2 means very small in number, very small in amount. They may vary from 2 in few to 6, not more than 6. Okay, and as you can see that the vascular bundles have radial and exarch arrangement. Exarch means the protoxylem is at the periphery and metaxylem is towards the center or pith side. Okay, as you can see that in monocot root the basic structures are similar as in dicot roots. Monocot roots also have epiblema. Epiblema means the epidermis here. Okay, so epiblema and epidermis both are the same things. So epiblema, root hair, then the cortical layer ending in endodermis, pericycle, and then the vascular bundle. The only difference between the two vascular bundles are that in monocot root the pith is very large and well developed, but in dicot root the pith was very small. Another thing is that the xylem bundles are polyarch. See, polyarch xylem bundles, that is more than 6 number of xylem bundles are present. So in dicot we had 2 to 6 number of xylem bundles, but in monocot we have polyarch xylem bundles, that is more than 6 xylem bundles are present. Okay, another difference is that no secondary growth. So monocot roots have no secondary growth. Okay, now here we have given few examples for your better understanding. So dicot roots are found in banyan tree roots, roots of garden pea. Monocot roots are found in maize, orchids, etc. Now let's come to the stem, dicot stem versus monocot stem. Okay, So dicot stem, the structure here you can see, this is the longitudinal section. Here we have epidermis with this hair like extensions or trichomes, then collenchyma, then parenchyma. Okay, collenchyma, as you know, that thickened corner cells having no intercellular spaces, then followed by a parenchyma layer, which are thin cells with loosely packed cells having intercellular spaces. Then we have the endodermis, then pericycle, then we have phloem layer, then cambium layer, and then metaxylem, and protoxylem is towards the pith. So this is the endarc arrangement of vascular bundle, as we have our metaxylem towards the outer side and protoxylem is towards the pith. Okay, so this is the arrangement in dicot stem. Here the outermost layer is epidermis with cuticle, trichomes and stomata present on epidermis. Cortex consists of 3 layers of cell: hypodermis, which is the collenchymatous layer, then the middle parenchymatous cortical layer, and then the endodermis. Endodermis may have starch grains. Then after endodermis we find the pericycle located and the radially located medullary rays. So we have the pericycle. Here you can see in the transverse section medullary rays are present. See this ring like structure, this is the medullary ray. Okay, now, and the vascular bundles are arranged in a ring, conjoint and open, and with endarc protoxylem. Next, in monocots we find certain differences, like the hypodermis is made up of sclerenchymatous cells. Here the hypodermis was made up of collenchymatous cells, so here it is usually made up of sclerenchymatous cells. Okay, hypodermis, and no trichomes are present, they don't have trichomes. So, and vascular bundles are scattered throughout the ground tissue, and the ground tissue is very much undifferentiated, no difference in ground tissue. Okay, vascular bundles are scattered, conjoint and closed. So in dicot stem we had open vascular bundles, in monocot stem we are having closed vascular bundles. Okay, now let's go on to the next one. Yes, here we have given some real life examples. So you can find dicot stems in sunflower, cucurbita, and monocot stems are found in tulips, onions, lilies, garlic, etc. Okay, now we have our comparative study between the leaves, dicot leaf and monocot leaf. First and foremost, see the dicot leaf structure. We have bundle sheath, xylem, phloem. Okay, that is the vascular bundle is embedded, and then okay, so one major thing is that upper surface of a leaf is called adaxial surface and lower surface of the leaf is called abaxial surface. So in dicot leaf we find certain differences between adaxial surface and abaxial surface. One major difference is that adaxial surface has rarely any stomata, that is, stoma may be absent or few are present, but most of the stoma are present on the abaxial surface, that is on the lower side. Okay, so now, and dicot leaves have reticulate venation. Dicot leaves have reticulate venation, so they are also known as dorsiventral leaf. They are also known as dorsiventral leaf because they have distinct dorsal and ventral sides, that is, the dorsal sides and ventral sides differ within them. Okay, now as I told earlier that more stoma are present on the abaxial epidermis, that is on the lower side. Okay, now the mesophyll cells are parenchymatous and perform photosynthesis. As you can see here, this is the mesophyll layer between the adaxial and abaxial surface. So this is the photosynthetic unit, and the mesophyll is differentiated into these elongated palisade and these rounded spongy parenchyma. Okay, so the elongated ones are called palisade and the rounded ones are called spongy. And as you can see that the spongy cells are loosely arranged, making gaps in between, which are called air cavity, that is air bubbles are filled within these cavities. Okay, now vascular bundles are surrounded by bundle sheath and present on veins and midrib. So as you can see, this is the vascular bundle. The vascular bundle is surrounded by bundle sheath and have xylem and phloem within, and are present on mainly the veins and midribs. Okay, now we come to monocot leaf. Monocot leaves are called isobilateral because their adaxial and abaxial surface both are similar. Okay, they have parallel venation. So here is the difference. Dicot leaf has reticulate venation, monocot leaf has parallel venation, and stoma are equally distributed on both the sides, that is adaxial and abaxial. Here you can see that the stoma are equally distributed on both the surface, and the mesophyll parenchyma cells are also not differentiated as was in dicot leaf. So this is a major difference. And another one is that few cells, here you can see that few cells are bubbled up to form bulliform cells. These are called bulliform cells. In grasses especially, they help in minimizing water loss by transpiration. Okay, and the vascular bundles are all of same sizes. Now let's come to examples. Here examples are mustard leaves, mint leaves, and in monocot we have maize, banana leaves, grass. So here we have given few pictures of the external morphology, by which seeing them you can identify dicot leaf or monocot leaf. So see, in dicot leaf you have very complicated venation work here, which is the reticulate venation prominent on the surface, but in monocot leaf you can see parallel venation and no such network like things. Okay, now so here we end our comparison, and now it's time for secondary growth. So secondary growth, before we go on to secondary growth, I must say that till now we have learned about primary growth. So what are primary growths? The growth of roots and stems in length with help of apical meristem. We know that apical meristem helps in growth of tips, root tips, shoot tips. So these are called primary growth. Okay, but now here we will be learning about secondary growth. So apart from primary growth, most dicot plants exhibit an increase in girth. So increase in diameter or girth of a plant is the reason behind secondary growth. So secondary growth causes increase in diameter or girth of many dicot plants. Okay, so the main two tissues, or rather lateral meristems, which are involved in secondary growth are vascular cambium and cork cambium. So here we come to a conclusion that primary growth is mainly caused by apical meristems and secondary growth is mainly caused by lateral meristems. Okay, now let's go on to details. Now first we will be learning about the function of the vascular cambium. What does this vascular cambium does? This vascular cambium is responsible for cutting xylem and phloem. Okay, so In dicot system, a ring of cambium is formed from intrafascicular cambium present between xylem and phloem and the medullary rays present adjoining the two vascular bundles that become meristematic. So, amongst the xylem and phloem, we have intrafascicular cambium, and also the medullary rays are present between two vascular bundles, two adjoining vascular bundles. So, these medullary rays and the intrafascicular cambium, that is the medullary rays between two vascular bundles and the intrafascicular cambium between the xylem and phloem, they all goes together and forms a round ring like this. So they all goes together and forms a round ring like this. Now this ring becomes meristematic. Okay, these rings becomes meristematic, that is they will be involved in growth. So after this ring becomes meristematic, they give rise to secondary phloem and secondary xylem. So the secondary phloem is developed towards the periphery, that is on the outer side, and the secondary xylem is formed towards the pith, that is on the inner side. See, here is a flow chart. So cambium ring, this will give rise to secondary phloem outer side and secondary xylem inner side. One thing is that the cambial ring is more active on inner side than on outer side. Hence, the amount of secondary xylem produced is much more than the secondary phloem. So, as a result, it happens that the secondary xylem becomes so much more in amount that on the pith side it gets crushed. The older xylems goes on crushing as the new secondary xylems are being added. Okay, so yes, here you can see that this is the intrafascicular cambium, and these two, then the middle of these two vascular bundles we can see the medullary rays. So this is the intrafascicular cambium between xylem and phloem, and within these two vascular bundles we can see medullary rays. So the medullary rays and intrafascicular cambium joins and forms a large ring which is meristematic. Now this ring cuts off secondary phloem on outer side and secondary xylem on inner side, and the secondary xylem are produced in much more quantities. So as they grows towards the pith, the older xylem gets crushed away. Okay, now as a result the cambium, as I told, the cambium is more active on inner side, so it produces secondary xylem much more than the secondary phloem. Okay, now at some places the cambium forms a narrow band of parenchyma which passes through secondary xylem and secondary phloem in radial direction. These are called the secondary medullary rays. So here you can see some dark lines, see straight lines within the rings. So these you can say secondary medullary rays. These are formed by cutting the producing a narrow band within the secondary phloem and secondary xylem. These narrow bands passes through secondary xylem and secondary phloem in radial direction, so they are called medullary rays. Okay, now we come to wood formation. Okay, wood formation. So cambium is very active during spring and forms early wood or spring wood. So during the spring season the cambium is much more active than on the autumn season. So during the spring season much more xylary elements are formed, and these are called the spring woods. Now late wood or autumn wood is formed during winters. Okay, so in winter the xylem action or the cambium action is very slow and cambium becomes rather much more inactive, so they forms dark dense color wood which is called the autumn wood. Okay, now as you can see that these early wood and this spring wood and autumn wood, or early wood and late wood, these are formed as concentric rings. So these concentric rings are called annual rings, and these concentric rings helps us to determine the age of a specific plant. So this study is called dendrochronology. So dendrochronologists usually can count these concentric rings and they can determine the age of a particular tree. Now let's come to heartwood and sapwood. So heartwood is also called duramen. As you can see, heartwood is the dark colored centric wood. Okay, and heartwood is formed due to deposition of tannins, resins, oils and gums in secondary xylem. It is hard, durable and resistant to insects. So heartwood is very hard and durable, and it is formed by deposition of various products like tannins, resins and all such things within the secondary xylem. Okay, so we can find heartwood at the center. Now sapwood is also called alburnum, and it's found mostly in the periphery, at the periphery of a wood. The peripheral region of secondary xylem conducts water and lighter in color and known as sapwood. So the peripheral regions can conduct water of secondary xylem. So these are lighter in color and are known as sapwood. Okay, now we have done the first part, that is the vascular cambium part. Now we can go on to the cork cambium part. Okay, cork cambium. Now cork cambium develops in the outer cortex region, also known as phelogen. Here as you can see that this outermost ring is the phelogen or cork cambium, which develops at the periphery of a tree. So this cork cambium also becomes meristematic and they give rise to certain structures like phloem or cork on the outer side or periphery, and pheloderm or secondary cortex on the inner side, that is towards the pith. See, phelogen divides on both sides, differentiating into outer cells called phloem or cork, and inner cells are known as pheloderm or secondary cortex. So this phelogen can divide into outer phloem and inner secondary cortex. See, here is a flow chart. So cork cambium or phelogen, this is the middle thing, and it can divide to give rise to cork or phloem on outer side or periphery, and secondary cortex or pheloderm on inner side or towards pith, and these three structures are together called periderm. Okay, now sovereign deposition on cell wall of cork makes it waterproof. So yes, this outer cork layer has sovereign deposition and becomes waterproof and durable and resistant to insects. Okay, so this helps a plant to make it even more harder, durable and resistant to certain insects, this cork layer. Okay, now all the tissues exterior to vascular cambium are called bark, including secondary phloem. So mainly the layers which are formed by activity of this cork cambium, so these all layers are known as the bark layers. So these all layers which are formed by the activity of cork cambium or phylogen, these all layers are called the bark layers. Now, bark that is formed early in the season is called early or soft bark. Towards the end of the season, late or hard bark is formed. So as the bark gets older and its formation is delayed or the number of layers increases, the bark becomes hard bark. Now, at certain regions, the phylogen cuts off closely arranged parenchyma cells on outer side instead of cork cells, forming a lens-shaped opening called lenticels, which permit the exchange of gases between the outer atmosphere and the internal tissue of the system. These occur in most woody trees. So in certain woody trees, the phylogen does not give rise to cork on outer side, rather it cuts the cork layer and causes an opening. So this opening is referred to as lenticel. It may be several in number. On the as you can see here, it appears like eye spots on the bark of a tree, but these are actually openings called lenticels through which gaseous exchanges or transpiration also sometimes may occur. Now we can find secondary growth in roots also, few dicot roots. So in the dicot root, vascular cambium is completely secondary in origin. It originates from tissue located just below the phloem bundles, a portion of pericycle tissue above the protoxylem, forming a complete and continuous wavy ring which later becomes circular. So as you can see, it originates from the tissue located below the phloem bundles. So below the phloem bundles we can find certain tissues, okay, which are above the protoxylem, which are wavy, and they generally gradually forms a complete ring or becomes circular. See, this is the cambial ring. As you can see in the picture, the cambial ring is formed just below the phloem bundles but above the protoxylem. So, and the rest things which occurred are similar like we have studied earlier, okay, in the stem. So secondary growth also occurs in stems and roots of gymnosperms. So apart from angiosperms, gymnosperms, stem and roots also have secondary growth. However, secondary growth does not occur in monocots, but monocots don't have secondary growth to occur, okay. Now, thank you. For more such amazing content, please like, share and subscribe our videos and tune in to Biospectrum NEET. And also you can join our Telegram group for more details and biology discussions. And also if you have any questions, you can mention in the comment section. Thank you.